So look, there's really no point in me making another video on just how insane of an opportunity you have during this 2022 to 2023 recession without me going into the details of how to actually execute on it. So in this video, I'm gonna lay out the 3-step framework that you need to implement over the space of the next 3 years to basically set yourself up for life. Now I want to make something very clear. This framework is not easy. Nothing good in life comes easy, let alone generational wealth. But this framework is incredibly simple. And unfortunately, a lot of times when something is so simple, people think this can't be the answer, this can't be the solution. Well, I have a newsflash for you. It is. Now, there are some nuances and there are some details where if you miss out, this 3-step framework and this 3-step plan will not work for you. And there are some specific details that you need to make sure you stay around for. So grab a coffee, grab a pen and paper, and with no further ado, let's get into it. Now, step number 1, and I cannot believe I am actually saying this. Step number 1 is I need you to save more. Now, any of you guys who know me know that in general, I have a disdain for frugal people. I have a disdain for oversavers. The people who are like, you know what? Here's how I'm going to become a millionaire. I'm going to penny pinch and I'm going to save and I'm not going to buy that $5 coffee. It's just so ridiculous. It's so preposterous. And really the only people that applies to, this is going to be offensive, but I don't care. It's just the truth. It's for the people who don't believe that they are worthy enough of making more money. So if you can't make more money, then you're like, well, I can't make any more money. So the only option I have is save money. And if I save and invest my way on a $35,000 a year income, maybe after 30 years, I can be a millionaire. I genuinely believe that people that try to save on their $5 coffee or think that in economy, it's not worth paying the extra $70 for extra legroom on a 7-hour flight. I genuinely believe that those people have a mental illness, and that mental illness is scarcity. And if you have a scarcity mindset, that's going to permeate into everything that you do. You're basically like repelling money. So as I said, just understand that excessive saving, basically getting into the frugal territory, I just think it's for people who are just lame, honestly. Like I see some of these people who make millions of dollars a year and it's like, what do you want to do? Like take all that money to the grave with you? Like, I mean, just spend it all. You definitely shouldn't be giving it to your kids. And most definitely you should not be giving it to your son. People need to, and especially men, need to go hunt. They need to work. They need to actually earn what they claim. Anyways, a little bit of a side tangent. Now you might be hearing all this stuff and might be going, well, oh, Iman, you're just reckless. You blow all your money. Actually, I am probably one of the biggest savers or investors you probably know. I personally save and invest or save for the purpose of in future when prices are better, investing 80% of my income. So I'm a big fan of saving and investing in your 20s and your 30s. But what I'm a fan of is making excessive money so that way you have the ability to save and invest without compromising on the sort of life that you want. But for the first time ever, I am actually kind of in favor of saving. And I'll explain to you why. It's because right now I'm looking at things and I'm looking at the fact that in the next year or so, and in some asset classes it's already the case, you're going to have the ability to buy things for a 50% discount. I mean, if you look at the crypto markets, you got 70% discounts from, where they were 6 months ago. If you look at the watch market, once again, from 3-4 months ago, you're getting a 25, 30, sometimes even 40% reduction from what it was, just a few months ago. And although real estate prices at the moment are still very high, I can guarantee you in a year from now, that will not be the case. So now when I'm looking at the price of something, a nice jacket from Loro or Xenia, 6 months ago, I'd look at it and the price tag would be $7,000. Now I look at it and I'm like, that's $21,000. Because if I took that same amount of money within the space of the next 5 to 8 years, that money will literally triple. And honestly, probably a lot shorter time frame as well. Now when I charter a private jet, rather than looking at the price tag as $30,000, I look at it as $90,000. Let's bring it back home to an example with you. Normally, I would tell someone, go spend your $150 a month on Starbucks. Like, don't try to save and squabble and all this stuff. Like, you should be able to make more than an extra $150 a month. Like, you should know that you have the ability to make extra few $1,000s a month if you really put your mind to something. Whereas now, if you're spending $150 a month on Starbucks, it's kind of a little bit more like $500 a month, because if you just dollar cost average that into different asset classes, whether that be crypto, stocks, whether that be saving up for the down payment on your first rental property, whatever the case is, for once during this 2022, 2023 recession, I can actually kind of see a use case for saving, and no matter how much money you make, whether you make $30,000 a year, $300,000 a year, $3 million a year, or $30 million a year, whatever it is, for once I'm actually starting to look at things and going, it is actually probably good for you to have your saver cap on. So step number 1 during this recession, over the space of the next 2 years, I don't want you to deal with lifestyle creep. As you make more money, I don't want you spending spending more money. You know, you can do that in 4 or 5 years, you know, in the year 2027, when you look back at this period and you're like, wow, this is the time when I bought assets at super cheap prices, and you really set yourself up for the rest of your life. And just a little caveat, one of the best ways to actually save more money is get your living costs down. Now, if you live in New York, California, if you live in Paris, London, Amsterdam, whatever, it can be very difficult to do that sometimes. If you have the ability to be remote, whether that be because of your job or you decide to start an online business, whatever the case is, I recommend places like Cape Town. Obviously, I'm a little biased. I have a 12,000 square foot sort of mega mansion there, and the living costs are 1/10 of what they are here in Dubai. We've got places like Medellin or even Bali. Basically, these places, you can have an incredible quality of life for much cheaper than it would cost in other major cities. So as I said, if you are location independent, definitely see if you can move out to some of these places for the next 2 years, 3 years, so that way you can get your living costs down, make more money, and then basically invest all that difference. Now, speaking about making more money, let's go to step 2, which is you need to increase your earning potential. Now, before some of you guys roll your eyes and you're like, he's gonna tell us to start an online cash flow based business again, because I've been doing that for the last 5 years. Let me actually tell you how to actually increase your earning potential if you work a job right now. Because let me tell you, I don't believe that everyone should be an entrepreneur. And I think there's actually a lot of honor for working for a good company with a good company culture that actually values you and is very honest with you, and gives you a good track for, you know, basically how you can progress in the company. I think that's super honorable. So the first thing you need to do if you work for a company is just take a really objective view of the current situation and ask yourself, is there potential for me to make more money if I provide more value to the company? So look, if you are working as a waiter at a restaurant, you just need to be very realistic and just know that you've got no room to grow. And in that situation, I would quit your job as quick as humanly possible if your conditions allow for it. AKA, if your parents are more than happy to take you back home, you know, you move back in with your parents for the next 12 months, 18 months while you're figuring things out. Or if you have enough savings and runway to sustain yourself for the next 6 to 8 months. If you are in a dead end job, just quit. Okay, make the leap and just focus in if you have that runway. Now, if you are in a situation where you're working for a company with more growth potential, the first thing to do is you need to look at the work that you're doing and reframe it, and always sort of anchor that with your employer. Here's the thing. Let's say, for example, you do editing or create thumbnails for a company. You know, one is a commodity, which is basically just content. The other is attaching an ROI to it. So constantly just making it clear that, hey guys, I improved the CTR of the thumbnails this amount, and that led to more eyeballs, which inevitably led to X amount more money. Or if you're an editor, constantly anchoring the old edits compared to new edits, and you know what that did for retention. Or for example, if you're in sales for a company, never ever talk about your commission to your employer or how much money you're making. You know, if you're trying to get a raise, don't be like, you know, I'm making, you know, $3,500 a month. I really want to be making $4,500 or $5,000 a month from the sales role. Instead, just ignore that. Constantly talk about, here's how much money I brought the company. If I bring in this much money, instead you need to go, boss, I made you $70,000 last month. If I make you $100,000 and I hit that benchmark, can I get a little performance bonus, so that way that really incentivizes me to hit that next goal? You need to understand that positioning is everything, and a lot of times you need to sell your own company and your own employer on the value that you are bringing to the company, because unless you do it and you constantly anchor the value that you bring to that company, they really have no reason to actually give you a raise. And the next thing that you can do if you work for actually a good company is just flat out go to your employer and ask them, look, what is my ceiling at this company? Do you see me growing into other positions? And at this current position, what is my maximum earning potential? Just have a very honest conversation and just get a good feel for the situation and how far you can grow with the company. Now, bear in mind, 98% of you that actually work jobs right now, your companies suck. They suck. They don't respect you. You've got no room to grow. So that advice that I gave, I just wanted to give that advice because I don't want people to think that the only option is to build an online business and this and that. I gave you another option right here, but just understand you don't have much wiggle room if you work at a company that, you know, the ascension path that they lay out for you is 20 years. If in 20 years you only start making $250,000 a year, which I get is a lot of money for some people. I'm not trying to be insensitive here, but like 20 years to make $250K a year working for someone. And by the way, I'm talking to the people that hate their job. If you make $50,000 a year and you genuinely love what you do and you love the company culture, who cares? That's far more fulfilling. But as I said, for those of you guys who hate your job and you don't see a good lifeline, there's no other better place to look than starting an online business. What you need to focus on is starting an online cash flow business that requires the least amount of money possible to actually get off the ground, and one that also has super high margins. Now, I'm not going to get into the specifics of that here. I will leave a link in the description for a video I posted earlier this year. This is my most popular video so far this year. And basically I go over the online money making matrix. I analyze with data you in a formula 8 to 10 different business models and basically present the best one depending on your situation. I will leave a link to that video below, and let's get into the third step. So you are saving, you've got your saver cap on, you're living, I don't want to say frugal because I hate that word, but you're living in a more conscious way, understanding that, you're going to spend less now. So that way in, 3, 4, 5 years, you're going to be able to spend a lot more. Then you've tried to maximize your earning potential either at your current career by framing things correctly or by starting an online cash flow business. Now, the last step and the most important is you need to invest that money. Look, you can do the first two things and you can do them very well, and you will remain in the rich category, not wealthy. And the goal here, quite frankly, isn't riches, it's wealth. Wealth is something that allows you to weather storms. Understand, for some of you, if you think this is, investing is scary and whatnot, I totally get it. I remember I was 18 years old, 2 years after actually starting my business while I was still in high school. I'd made my first $1 million in profit that year, and I was what you would consider rich, but I definitely wasn't wealthy because I didn't have any good roots. I didn't have any good foundation, and I wanted to invest, and and it took me a whole year of reading and being maybe I'll get into it then, and sort of procrastinating because I just thought it was so scary. And I can tell you, honestly, it's not. So just keep it simple. If you're first getting started investing, by far the best thing that you can do is just DCA, which means dollar cost average. So pick some of your favorite asset classes and just DCA into those weekly or monthly, whatever period you want to do. Now, over the past 3 years, my main investments were in crypto and watches, which both did incredibly well. And there were also a few other alternative investments, but those usually made up less than 10 to 15% of my overall investment portfolio. So that was really my vehicle up until that point. Now, over the space of next year, I'm looking to pour 10 to 15 million into real estate. Now, as I said, there can be different asset classes. And the funny thing is, now you might look at me in my position and go, oh, Iman takes action and he's not scared and all this stuff. And I'll be honest, one of the reasons I haven't gone into real estate sooner is just because I needed to jump in and understand the world. So even for me, as I'm looking to deploy millions and millions and millions over the space of the next year, I'm even like, oh wow, this is kind of scary. I'm buying my first 3, 4, 5, 10 investment properties. This is quite intense. So the reason I mention that is because that may be the way that you feel about crypto, or maybe the way you feel about, for example, watches. I think a lot of you guys know that I have over a $3 million watch portfolio. Just from buying and wearing watches over the space of the last 3 years, I made something like $1.3, $1.4 million if I was to sell my entire portfolio. So there are a bunch of different asset classes that you can choose from. My best recommendation is look at the ones that have the easiest on-ramp. Basically, how can you take fiat currency, your pounds, your dollars, your euro, whatever, and buy that asset with it? So for you to take your pounds, euros, dollars, etc., and then buy an investment property, especially if you're getting a mortgage and stuff like that, it takes a little bit more skill and it takes a little bit more understanding, and it can be scary for some people. So that's not the best place to start as a beginner. And regardless, you're going to need a lot more money for it. Same thing with watches. Watches are a world that you're going to need to understand, especially if, just like in my case, you buy all of your watches directly from the brand at retail. You need to understand that language and that world, etc. The two easiest that I found for people to get started with is stocks and crypto. And the beauty of it, both of those have already been hammered massively. Those have already come down a lot. I think they will have a further leg down at the end of this year and early 2023. But still, if you're buying at these prices, you're going to be doing well if you look over a 5 or 6 year trajectory. So crypto and stocks are by far the easiest to actually just start dollar cost averaging, investing $100, $200, whatever you can afford a week into those asset classes. And then as you're doing that, you're finding creative ways to save more money so you can invest more as well as increase your earned income. And by the way, if your income is $35,000 a year and you're sacrificing the $150 a month for Starbucks, in order to do this, once you get to $100,000 a year in income, or let's say you even manage to double your income by starting a side gig, by building an online cash flow business, etc., go ahead and splurge on your Starbucks again, right? The main key here is you need to save/invest 50 to 80% of everything you're making. That's the rule. And by the way, as you make more money, that percentage should go up. Because look, here's the thing. If you're making $30,000 a year, it's going to be very hard to, save and invest 80% of everything you make. If you're in that case, you might only be able to save and invest 30%, and it might be difficult. This is why it's so important to follow step 2 and make more money. So that way you get to a point where you can live a great lifestyle. You're not penny pinching and, you don't feel like you're really missing out on stuff, yet you're investing so much money. I live an incredible life. I spend a couple $1 million a year just on my life, yet I still manage to save and invest 70 to 80% of everything I make because I'm trying to set myself up for my future. But in the meantime, I still want to live a good life. So ladies and gentlemen, those are the 3 steps. As I said, they are not easy, but they're simple. And unfortunately, sometimes simple, everyone wants a different hack and a different method and trick and tactic. A lot of times simple is the thing that actually works and produces results for good reason. So keep it simple. There is a massive opportunity out there to seize. Do not dwindle it. And I'm here rooting for you.